Welcome back to a brand new Civ 6 or Civilization 6 video. What's better than committing crimes against the AI in Civ 6? Simple. Establishing your superiority against human players in Civilization 6 multiplayer. I mean, who else would want to play that cesspool of a game of League of Legends if it wasn't actual multiplayer? This is going to be tips to dominate any game of multiplayer. Think of it as a 5-step guide for winning any game in multiplayer in Civ 6. As always, like and subscribe, it does help me out a ton, and will let you get the first info on any new tips or tricks I come out with in the future. These tips are more unknown than the fate of Jeffrey Epstein, so I suggest you sit back, grab your notepad, and get ready to take some notes. Let's get into the video. The first tip's a pretty simple one, and that is something all our mothers told us to worry about: protection throughout your lands. Now, unlike the Oregon Trail, we don't want to be sending our settlers undefended by themselves to get roamed and taken out by bandits or dysentery. Instead, you want to build a large-ish military to both defend yourself against human players and also to sort of establish a perimeter so you can only transport your settlers and builders safely, as well as preventing the enemies from coming near you and jacking your stuff. Now, essentially, the other good thing about building a military is that if anybody finds an opportunistic builder or a way to pillage in multiplayer, they're going to do it. If they find a city on the outskirts undefended, they'll declare war, take whatever civilian units they can get, and pillage everything just to set you back and piss you off a little bit. The other good thing about building a large military to defend your lands is that you could prevent enemy settlers from settling near your claimed territory. Just like in real life, you want to get into as many fights as you can over that useless patch of grass that you have no idea what you're going to use for. You want to protect all your territories, so if the enemy decides to bring in a settler with a unit even, you will be able to attack that unit, either push him back, take the settler, or get some money in a peace treaty and still take the settler anyway. So essentially, it's sort of a two-step process. You want to build archers and then warriors for a strong defense. Ranged units, especially in multiplayer where everyone's going to build them, is very, very necessary. And having warriors as a strong backbone, they're probably the best units to have until swordsmen come around. Call my units Starbucks locations because they are going to be numerous and everywhere. You want them in as many places as you can to both defend against barbarians and to make sure that the enemy players can't do anything about your settlers. The next tip is a very important one. The biggest thing you want to do in the early game is get political philosophy. It is essential. You'll always be able to want to go oligarchy when there's a near player, because +4 combat strength is way too good to ever pass up. If they have +4 and you don't, you're screwed. If you have +4 and they do, you're on even playing fields. If you have +4 and they have nothing, you're going to absolutely run a train on them. Not only that, but the Government Plaza is one of my... the Ancestral Hall Plaza is probably the best district you could build in the early game. The settler production is amazing, and in multiplayer, getting those big boys out, especially in where you can't really go for an early rush in multiplayer in Civ 6, you want to get those settlers out as essentially quick as possible. You know, make sure you gobble up all that land, and the free builder doesn't hurt either. Chop it out if you have to, because free builders with Ancestral Hall will give all your cities a massive boost and allow you to skyrocket ahead. Let's get to the next tip. The next tip's a really quick and simple one, and that is to make allies wherever you can. Allies not only prevent them from declaring war on you, but you can actually find someone safe to trade with, and you might even be able to potentially Big Mac strat. That is, when you are the bottom bun, you make allies with the top bun, and then you attack the person in between you, sort of like a Big Mac. Think of an American in a power scooter with another ally, essentially. Now, you want to take him out, and then right afterwards, you want to take out the top bun as well, so you get 2 civilizations worth of lands. We'll probably lose a couple units. You got to make sure you don't lose any units for the strat to work, so that when they're weak and you're still decently strong, you'll be able to take out your former friend. Essentially, you want to backstab your ally like Germany backstabbed Russia in World War II, but early to mid game, it does provide immense protection and trade, so that even if you can't really do the strategy, you can just be friends with somebody, you'll have someone nice to trade to, and you will be able to prevent them from really stealing your settlers or declaring war on you or anything else that you can hate. Make a defensive alliance as well, and always prioritize a military alliance, because you can rest easy after that. As a military alliance as well as a decent defense, you'll literally be unstoppable. With political philosophy, you're looking at like a damn almost double-digit extra combat strength. You will be untouchable at that point. The third tip is one you want to do after you get your military nice and chunky, and that is an economy in the early game being one of the most important things. Now, unlike in Deity, no one gets a buff, so first person to start getting science in a good amount will have a compounding effect. If you get libraries first, you will be able to get universities sooner than everyone else, which will allow you to get research labs sooner than everyone else, which will allow you to get very late units. You see where I'm going with this? The faster you can get your economy up and running with science and culture, the more you will be able to make in the future, like a compounding effect. Call me Grant Cardone because I'm teaching you methods on how to compound your yields and money, except for the fact that my methods actually work. Now, money does give you spending power also to buy whatever you need, so you do want a lot of commercial hubs and trade routes, which will allow you to shore up any weaknesses throughout your empire. Aside from that, production, money, and science do need to be up to par in multiplayer. Culture is very important as well, but after political philosophy, it gets a little less important, unless someone decides to rush the no-no ideology very fast, the one other than communism or democracy, the one that'll get me demonetized on this video. It does kind of suck, but by that time you should have a number of allies as well as a decently strong military, and +4 combat strength early game is a lot better than whatever that ideology gives you in the late game, so there is also that. This next tip will leave me feeling like an imposter and you probably believing the real Civ lifer got kidnapped, and that is to avoid early wars. They are almost never worth it because once they see your military strength going up, all the players near you are just going to start building walls and archers, unless they're just inexperienced or plain stupid, and if they are, you can still get the same effect by rushing bombards or artillery or planes, and then taking them out later when they've already so nicely developed their empire for you. It's very risky to go for an early war because archers and walls, you're pretty much finished. The players will almost assuredly build a large number of archers, and with that, your offensive will stop damn near immediately. It sets you too far behind, honestly, even if the early rush works, if we're being completely honest, because even if the early rush does work, then you still need time to actually get everything under control, get the money up, get the science and production, because you've been spending everything on military production and a great general, and honestly, by the time you get everything, you start compounding, there's someone else who just focused on economy and is already preparing to attack you with planes while you're stuck with knights and horses. Again, never do an early war in multiplayer unless you get a super prime opportunity or unless you just want to have fun, I guess. But if you're really trying to win, then early war in multiplayer is something that you should be very, very careful of. This next tip is a nice juicy combat one, and it's very simple. When you go to war, taking cities is important, yes. But especially in multiplayer, you want to pillage and damage and destroy as much as possible. You want to be like the barbarians in Civ 6, alright? Because if for some reason you aren't able to do as much damage as you can, and the enemy is able to push you back, leaving their cities charred ruins is very, very good for you, in that they will have a much weaker base to wage war and the entire game from. If you take their capital and pillage everything around it, destroy all the buildings you can, and just limit the population by taking it out a few times, you will have done considerably more damage than you could have hoped to do, and either the enemy will either DC, because a lot of people will give up after they start losing, or B, they'll continue fighting, but even if they are able to take their cities back, they will be very weak, and it will take them 30 to 40 turns to get everything back up and running again. So again, if you are able to take cities, that's great, perfect, it's better for you, but just in case, I would recommend pillaging everything, act like the barbarians, so that if something happens, maybe another challenger enters the fray and they start walking towards you, like in JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, then you would probably want to have a backup plan, take your cities back, but trust me, they're not going to have their cities back. They are going to be charred corpses of their former cities. And we've gotten to our final tip. As always, if you do enjoy, leave a like and subscribe. Thank you for getting this far. But the final tip is practice speed in single player before going to multiplayer. Combat, especially on multiplayer in Civ 6, is based on speed. Also internet connection, but I don't really think you'd be able to change that as easily. Essentially, there is a timer in almost every game which prevents people from taking 5 hours to make their decision. Now, considering it takes me about an hour and a half to finish a game of Civ 6, I don't really have a problem with speed, but I know a lot of people might, especially considering it's a strategy game and you're really used to taking your time and making decisions that are very well informed. You can't really do that because getting everything done in the timer is very essential to actually doing anything. If you get, 5 really good attacks off, it's not going to do as much damage as the enemy who's able to get 10 decent attacks off, if that makes sense. And the more you practice, the more easier it'll come to you, and you will be able to not only make 10 good attacks, you'll make 10 great attacks. So essentially what I'm saying is the faster you can make decisions and the faster you can implement them in the game, the better off you will be due to the timer restricting the amount of time you have each turn. If you can get everything done fast enough, you will have a massive advantage over everybody. And in all honesty, that is pretty much going to be it. And I'll see you all in the next video. Peace.